Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the 1882 Club. And, for once, we're discussing a win. Tottenham Hotspur have won a game. They beat Bodo Glimt by 3-1. Although I'm sure for many, it actually kind of feels like a hollow win to a degree because Bodo Glimt got that late goal. And they did well to limit the damage in a sense because they were missing a number of players, and we'll come on to that in a minute. But that late goal from Saltsness for them has probably given them a bit of confidence going into next week, and it's just such another cheap goal to concede. It's frustrating considering Spurs actually did put in quite a good performance overall. They were pretty much in control for most of the game, and they will still take control. They'll take a commanding lead into that game, but this is Tottenham Hotspur, and we have seen before when Spurs have had leads in European games what they've done, and I've probably still got PTSD from that Zagreb game a few years ago, which is why I'm kind of with everyone else that I feel a bit deflated after the game, particularly if with that late goal going in. Had it been 3-0, I'd have thought, well, I think it's game over and we're going to the Bilbao for the final. But they've got to be better next week. The second half from Spurs wasn't great at all, but yeah, we'll come on to that in a minute. And I think, having been really negative in the Liverpool podcast because Spurs were awful that day, they were really, really bad. I want to be a bit more positive this time because I thought there were real aspects of this game that were so much better than what we've been seeing for the majority of the season. Before the game, there was a lot of rumours floating around that Lucas Bergvall had got an injury, and a lot of people on social media I've seen saying that this was bullshit. It was called by an account that supposedly has close connections to the club. I don't know. And people saying, "Oh, it's just made up. It's rubbish. It's bullshit." But then it comes to the game and the pre-match footage, and you're seeing Spurs posting videos on social media of players arriving, and no one's seeing Lucas Bergvall with the squad. And then it comes to the training before the game on the pitch, and Bergvall's not there. Lucas Bergvall, I've been perhaps more vocal and more critical about him than other fans have. And he's a talented player, no doubt. He's got ability, and no doubt if with the right coaching, he could be a great player. But at this moment in time, I've said that fans are making him out to be something he's not. However, I'm going to roll back on that slightly, and I do think Spurs are better with him in the midfield than they are without him, in the sense that the other options we've got in that midfield are very similar types of players. So Bentancur is similar to Bissouma, who's sort of similar to Pape Sarr. So Bergvall offers something in between the Bentancur type midfielder to the Maddison type midfielder. He's the hybrid of the two. So Spurs have got something better there when he's playing, I think. But it was Bentancur and Bissouma who were chosen as the midfield partnership. And I think some fans were a little bit ambivalent about whether or not they'd be good. Some were saying that it's more experience in that midfield, and it provides a bit more strength than it would have putting Archie Gray and Bergvall together because they're young. Others were saying, well, Bissouma's done nothing all season. Bentancur's inconsistent. So why not go with youth? Because they've got nothing to lose. I'm more leaning towards the experience argument. I think they needed experience there last night. I think they needed some resilience because Bodo Glimt, to their credit, I know they're missing players, are a team in possession who look quite organised and quite neat and tidy, and they're not afraid to have the ball. So I think you needed that midfield in there that were likely to put themselves out there a bit more than compared to an Archie Gray, who's a young player and needs some nurturing and encouragement. In a big game like this, you need that experience. But Spurs, well, they flew out the blocks, really, didn't they? That goal early on from Richarlison, that he was picked on the left from the team sheet. It looked like he was playing as the left winger with Solanke up front and Brennan Johnson on the right. And I thought, wow, is Richie really a take-on winger? I don't think he has been since probably his days at Watford and maybe the early days at Everton. He's tended to go more through the middle. So I thought that was a bit of a strange choice. But to his credit, early on, he put a nice ball in the box that just before the goal that no one attacked. And then when the ball comes in, leading to the first goal, it at the left side of the box, it's a really, really nice header back across the box. Sets up Johnson perfectly. He can't really miss. And makes it 1-0. Brennan Johnson, the enigma that is Brennan Johnson. It's strange, really, because I think the best way to sum it up is he must be having the worst best season ever, if that makes sense, because and I fall into the camp of Spurs fans who say that he doesn't do enough, because you can see him play for a game and not do anything, but all of a sudden he pops up with a goal at the back post, or he's got a tap in that, he's on the score sheet, but he doesn't do a lot else. And that is his 17th goal of the season. Just like thinking, 17 goals he scored, and all while he creates this veneer of not doing anything, or he doesn't really try and beat his man on the right wing. And I don't actually think, and I'm going to caveat that, I don't actually think that's what his main skill is. I think his main skill is what he's good at, which is arriving late in the box and getting on the end of crosses across the box. And he's not a bad finisher at all. You obviously have to be a decent finisher to be getting 17 goals this season. And I do think that he's one of those players I might reserve judgment for under a different manager, because I just don't think the role that Postecoglou is asking him to do is his best skill set. It doesn't suit his style. So maybe a different manager would get something out of him, or something more out of him. He's still a young player. He's not very old. I think he's only about 22, 23. He's 23. So there's still years of development there. But he's just so anonymous in games sometimes. Even if it doesn't suit your skill set, you've got to be putting yourself out there a bit more and showing a bit more energy and a bit more fight sometimes. He just seems to go missing a lot of the time, and that's not a good thing at all, and it doesn't help the team. But he does get his goal, put Spurs 1-0 up, really, really ramped up the atmosphere in the ground, and they had the tifo behind the goal, the Today Is to Do, which was a repeat of one they did against Manchester City, I believe, in the Champions League, because I think I was at that game. It was the second game at the new ground. And the atmosphere that night was electric as well. It certainly appeared to be electric in most of the first half. And Spurs go 2-0 up. Really, really lovely pass from Pedro Porro. just beautifully weighted over the top of the defence. Bodo Glimt just really didn't know where Maddison was. He just ran through, beautiful control, brought it down. And I thought, although I said it was good control, I thought he might have taken it a bit too wide and that he might have made the angle a lot tighter for himself, given that the keeper was close to him and the two centre-backs were running back towards the goal. I thought he might have made it a bit too tight, in fairness, the contact from Maddison is slightly scuffed. But maybe the scuffed contact was what was needed because it just bobbled over the keeper's leg and in between the two centre-backs and rolls into the corner. Had he caught that cleanly along the ground, I think the keeper's stopping it or one of the defenders get to it. So maybe the scuffed contact was actually a good scuff in the end because it just enabled that ball to evade the defence and make it 2-0 to Spurs. Maddison on the day I thought was one of the best players, and it frustrates me so much when you hear Spurs fans say that he needs to be moved on. He doesn't. He's a fantastic footballer. He always has been. Even at Leicester, he was one of the best midfielders in the Premier League easily. He scores goals. He creates goals. And I understand people saying he's inconsistent, but that's almost the nature of his position. Christian Eriksen, as an example, as a 10, he wasn't consistent all the time. But when he had the ball at his feet, he would make things happen. And that's what the number 10, the Metsala, the playmaker, that's what they do. They make things happen. They either score a goal or they create one. Lovely weighted passes, or they just from the edge of the box they find the goal. We've seen Eriksen do it so many times for Spurs. Saw Van der Vaart do it years ago. That kind of player, by their very nature, are inconsistent, but when they do turn up and when they perform, they make things happen and they make the team tick. Kevin De Bruyne, probably one of the greatest midfielders of his type the game's ever seen, is not consistent all the time. But he just creates those moments of magic that make him brilliant, that make him a fantastic footballer. And Maddison's a bit like that. He's a maverick. But I think he's had a really good season quietly. He's got a lot of goals, which he didn't get last season. He was interrupted by injury, and that's understandable. But this season he's got 9 goals in the league. He's got 7 assists in the league. In the Europa League, he's got 3 goals and 3 assists. So 12 goals for a season from a midfielder, I think, is a really good return. And also he's also Maddison. He's also quite a good talker as well. He's also quite he's quite down to earth and all right. He might annoy some people, but I've got a lot of time for him. I like him, and I think he needs to be in and around that squad next season with a different manager. Again, like a lot of these players with a different manager, I think he would thrive. Because we've seen what he can do, and yeah, he's a terrific footballer. Bodo Glimt, just before half time, actually, they did create a chance that I think, looking back, I'm 50-50 on it, because I think on the one hand you could say that I can't remember who it was who had the shot for them, but on the one hand it's a difficult chance because it's a half volley and keeping it down is tricky. But the wing play from Marta, I think their winger's called, to put the ball in and to find their player in the box almost unmarked and unchallenged, I think he will probably feel he should have done better with it, and Bodo Glimt would have had one back just before half time. But what I'm going to focus on is some of the defending in the box there. Bentancur, Bentancur's the one I want to focus on. He turns his back. You've got to challenge that ball. You've got to try and get to the ball quicker than the opposition's getting to it. He just turns his back and he's ball watching for a large part of it, but then doesn't get out to stop the danger quick enough. A doggy. He's been beaten too easily on the outside. Doesn't do enough to stop the cross coming in, which is what a fullback should do. He could have switched on and that ball could have either gone out for a corner or throw in, or he could have made sure that the winger doesn't get the ball in immediately. But he makes it far too easy for the cross to come in. It's a good cross. Bentancur's turned his back, not interested, and the cross comes in, shot goes over the bar. That should have been 2-1, and that should have been the wake-up call. Because after that, Bodo Glimt, to their credit, I thought were really good. I thought they gave... they're limited on their numbers. They're limited in perhaps their quality because they don't have really many superstar players, if any. But they're a good unit, and they all seem to know what they're doing. And that's to their coach, Knutson. It's to his credit that he's got the team this far and they look this organised. And they have some nice sort of patterns of play at the beginning of the second half that look to threaten Spurs a little bit. They don't quite get the shots on goal that they probably should or would have wanted, and they concede the penalty, which wasn't given in normal time. It's Christian Romero who, I think it's a penalty. We'll start off with that. I think it's a penalty. The Bodo Glimt defender is not intending to harm or foul Romero, but Romero's been clever and he's got to the ball first. He's felt the contact and he's gone down. It's smart play. It's clever play from Romero. It's a definite penalty. VAR overturn it. Solanke steps up, sends the keeper the wrong way. 3-0. We're cruising. Absolutely cruising. But like so often this season, we've seen Spurs just... It wasn't just after that goal. It was for most of the second half. Spurs just seemed to just invite pressure on themselves. Giving sloppy passes away. Not being clinical enough in their possession. They still created chances, Spurs, in the second half. But they just wasted it. They just wasted the chances they created. I should have mentioned as well, Richarlison went off at half time, bought on Matty's tell. I don't think he had the impact he would have wanted. He's a funny one, Tell, because in January when Spurs were linked with him, there was actually quite a fanfare around that because he was regarded as a real talent from Bayern Munich. And I think when Spurs got him in the end, it was like a damp squib to a degree because he should be seen as a coup. I think he's a talented footballer. And I think considering he's only 19 or 20, there's a lot of room to develop him. But because of what emerged that he wasn't interested in Spurs and then changed his mind, he's almost been seen as I'm trying to think of the right word. He's been seen as like another Timo Werner. Just another player who's been bought in as a body, but doesn't seem to necessarily fit in as such. I I don't think he knows, and I don't think Ange knows his best position. Is he a forward? Is he a winger? Because he's played both at Bayern Munich and he's played both at Tottenham, and he doesn't seem to know where to fit him in. And that's a problem, I think. I'd rather have Spurs have players who are designated to one position rather than, I'm going to call it, jack of all trades players. Because you just need specialists in their own position rather than having someone who's like, oh, I can play up front. Oh, I can play out wide. I can play in midfield. They need just specialist footballers in those positions. Because everything, I think then when you have players who can play multiple positions, everything becomes disjointed and doesn't seem to flow because they want to, at one point, move out wide and then they come back into the middle and then they want to go out wide again. And it seems a bit muddled. Which is why I've got a bit of respect for Solanke in that sense, because he is a proper number 9. He holds the ball up quite well. He puts the energy in, and he's always in the middle. But for some reason, the crosses just don't seem to want to come to him. They don't seem to want to play the ball into him. Everything has to go out wide, and then the wingers either want to cut inside and shoot, or they want to cut back to the fullbacks, who then don't put the ball in. So if I was Solanke, I'd be feeling a little bit frustrated about the lack of service that he's getting at times. He does get the goal from the penalty, 3-0, we're cruising. And as I've said, Spurs just seem to want to let Bodo Glimt back into the game. And they shouldn't have done. They could have killed them off because they are not anywhere near the quality of Tottenham. And I'm not going to say they're a bad side because they're not. They're as I said, they're neat and tidy in possession. They look organised. I just think they don't quite have the quality that Spurs have, which is perhaps why they struggle a bit. But Spurs let Bodo Glimt back into it late on. And in all fairness, it's a good move from Bodo Glimt. So they play some nice football, and then the ball comes into Saltsness, who hits the shot. It hits, I think, Bentancur just on the ankle, and then it loops up over Vicario into the net. Had it not hit Bentancur, I don't think it's going in. It's just that a little bit unlucky, but Spurs kind of asked for it. I'm sorry to say they allowed Bodo Glimt to come into the game, and at 3-1, that's a different game to 3-0. This is a 2-legged tie, remember, and Spurs have got to go and play away, where, with all due respect, their away record in Europe isn't as good as their home record. And that's a bit of a kick in the teeth, I think. And Bodo Glimt will probably go into their home fixture with quite a bit of confidence, because they're going to have a few players returning from suspension. I think most notably is a Patrick Berg, them sort of orchestrator in the midfield, the maestro for them, and that's a good thing for them. But how this is going to affect Tottenham, I don't know, because Maddison went off with what looked like an injury, and because I'm recording this on the Friday, and I know, and I've seen Ange's comments in his press conference, he said that Maddison's going for a scan, and they're not sure quite the extent of his injury yet, but it's not looking good. Not looking good at all. Bergvall has been confirmed to be out for the season, which is a blow for him, because he was getting a lot of minutes, getting regular football, and it's going to hinder his development a little bit, set it back. Solanke, I don't think his injury is too serious, but I think he's going to miss the game against West Ham at the weekend. which we'll look ahead to in a moment. Andrew said it doesn't look so bad. He's a doubt to face West Ham, but that's all to be decided come the game at the weekend. Yeah, Spurs, man, just shouldn't really feel deflated. Should feel upbeat because Spurs have won 3-1 and they're going into a second leg with a controlling position in the tie. But Bodo Glimt will, I imagine, get let confidence from that late goal. They've also got, I think, one of their creative midfielders, I think, is returning for the next fixture. I think he was suspended for this game. Yeah, it's Hakon Evjen, who is one of their more creative players. He got 10 assists in the league last season. Yeah, so they're going to have him and Berg back, and probably Andreas Helmersson, who will be a boost for them, I'm sure. I think looking ahead to next week's fixture, if Bodo Glimt get an early goal within sort of the first 10 minutes or so, I reckon Spurs might start to panic, because that's just the mentality at the moment that Spurs just seem to be. Well, it has been for a while under a few managers, but just seem so mentally fragile that when one goal goes in, they just want to. No one wants the ball. Everyone wants to hide, and they just don't want to do anything wrong. It needs someone to put in a brave performance and just say, right, I want the ball. I want to dictate the game. Because if Spurs dictate the game, they'll win. They've got better players. They've just got more quality, and quality will win as long as the work rate and the mentality is there. If the work rate and mentality is there, they're not going to win. And Bodo Glimt, in their defence, have a really good home record. I think there was a stat last night that they've won 30 of their 36 home games in European competition or in all competitions. That's a brilliant record. And it's going to be played on a plastic pitch. Last time we played on a plastic pitch was against Tamworth, non-league Tamworth, remember? And we struggled. We got taken to extra time against that lot. Plastic pitches are not what you think. You think that they'd be more suitable for top level players. They're not. They're completely different. And Spurs are going to be playing this game in a stadium that's more or less in the Arctic Circle. So again, their conditions are different. Bodo Glimt have beaten Roma 6-1 in the Europa League. They've beaten Porto. They've beaten Besiktas. They've beaten Lazio in the last round. They won 2-0 at home. They're no mugs. They are no mugs. And they will get confidence from that late goal. If we don't win this competition, yeah, we're not in a. This has just been a disaster of a season, I think. Anyway, I think the Europa League covers the cracks. Really covers over the cracks, because this squad is not good. It's not well coached. It's not well organised. It's not well drilled. And players are not developing the way they should be. I think the quality of players in the squad is much, much better than where Tottenham are now. I'm not saying that they are a top four side, but I think they're certainly better than 16th or 17th in the league. And they're certainly better than sitting on 37 points. That's for sure. I think Spurs will get it done. My gut says that. But my head, having watched Spurs in European competitions, having lost a 2-0 lead from a home fixture to Dinamo Zagreb in an embarrassing defeat that led to the dismissal of Jose Mourinho. I've seen Spurs lose to NS Mura. NS Mura, a team from Slovenia with a town, the population which is less than the size of our South Stand. We lost 2-1. Seen Spurs lose to Vitesse Arnhem. Pacos de Ferreira. By the way, I found out the other day that if you remember the Pacos de Ferreira game under Nuno, they're now in the Portuguese second tier. So if anyone's saying that this game is cut and dry, that Spurs will be in Bilbao, and I've seen so many fans saying that they're booking their tickets to Bilbao right now. Don't, because this game is far from over. And if you book your tickets to Bilbao now and Spurs go out, you're going to look like a massive fool. This game's not over. This tie is not over. And if Spurs concede early next week, they're in for a very, very long game. But as it stands at the minute, they're winning. We can talk about a win, and we've spoken about a win. The question is now, can they follow that up in the league at the weekend against a team that are equally as bad as Spurs are? West Ham away, their cup final. Historically, we don't do well against West Ham. Not at their grounds, whether that be the London Stadium, whether that be in Upton Park. Their fans and their players will be up for this game. They always are. Last year we got a 1-1 draw. Year before that, I think we lost. I'll have to check that, but I think we lost. Yeah, their players are always up for this game. Always up for it. I think Spurs, West Ham. It's lucky West Ham aren't in good form either. I mean, they're round about Spurs. I think they're just one place below Spurs. Just double check. Yeah, they're 17th in the Premier League, 1 point below Spurs. So they'll be looking to get ahead of Spurs and go into 16th. You know, and with what looks like to be no Maddison, look like no Bergval, possibly no Solanke. It's going to make things a hell of a lot harder than what it could have been. I mean, had Spurs got all their players fit, I think they probably would beat West Ham. But now you're looking at it and thinking, I don't know. And it would just really cap off a truly dismal season that lot will have won their cup final and they'll be chirping. They really will be chirping. Potter has had no real impact at West Ham at all, I don't think. When they sacked Lopetegui, you thought that, well, he might have a bit of an impact. He might have a little bit of a bounce there, but he hasn't really. I don't think Jared Bowen's been as good this season as he was last year, but then again, neither of West Ham. So there's a little bit of optimism there that maybe their top players aren't on form. But if if Jared Bowen suddenly decides to get in form, if for some reason that if Mohamed Kudus decides to start performing again, because he hasn't been at the same level as he was last year. I really like him as a footballer. I think he's a terrific player. But if their players turn up, Spurs could be on the end of a particularly difficult weekend, possibly. And it would be a pity if Spurs just decide not to turn up. I've seen Ange's comments today that he wants to rest players for this game. I think these players need match time. They need to be physically sharp and mentally sharp for their game against Bodo Glimt. And the only real way you can get that, I think, is match time and game time against top opposition. West Ham have probably got better players than Bodo Glimt. So if they're facing a team like West Ham, then they're going to be hopefully mentally sharp enough to face Bodo Glimt. But for some reason, Ange decides he wants to rest players. And I understand it to a degree because we've seen this season the squad's been absolutely decimated by an injury crisis. And players like Van der Ven have got dodgy hamstrings. We've seen Romero's been out for a while. He won't want to lose those players. But at the same time, if they're resting, then they're not. Maybe their muscles need more exercise. I don't know. I'm not a coach. It's entirely in his hands. But the backlash from the fan base if Spurs lose to West Ham will not be pretty. West Ham are one of our rivals, and their fans will most definitely want to see their side beat Spurs. So we cannot allow that to happen ahead of this weekend. If I was predicting the squad for this or the team for this weekend, I'd probably go with I continue with Vicario in goal. I just don't trust Kinski enough. Not in the league. I think he's young, he'll need to develop, but he's too raw at the minute for a game like that. I'd go Jed Spence for Porro. I think Spence, although he hasn't been great recently, I'd pick Spence just because he can do a similar sort of role to Porro, and I think there won't be a huge drop off if Porro is dropped. I'd play Romero and I'd play Van der Ven. But if Kevin Danso was to come in, then I don't think I'd be annoyed because I do quite like Kevin Danso. And I do think Kevin Danso is a good defender. But I'd want Romero and Van der Ven to play together ahead of the game against Bodo Glimt, just so they can be physically and mentally sharp, as I've said. On the left back role, I think I'm going with a doggy, probably just because we haven't got anyone else. Alternatively, you could play Romero and Danso and have Van der Ven as a left back, possibly. Who knows? I mean, Van der Ven has played left back before, so maybe Van der Ven at left back. Midfield, I'm going with Bentancur, and I think I'm going to go with, instead of Bissouma, I'm going to go with Pap Sarr, because I think Sarr offers a bit more of the Bergvall type role. He's got a good engine on him, and he can get between the defensive side and the attacking side relatively quickly, and I think he's got a goal in him. So I go with Sarr in that midfield just to cover the Bergvall absence. Attacking midfield, I think we've got to go with Decky. Although he's looked a bit sluggish recently, and I get it because he's coming back from injury, but I think he needs to sharpen up because he's been arguably one of our best players this season. Certainly in the first half of the season, he was electric. He was scoring goals, he was creating goals, and he was looking a really, really top player. Since that injury, he's come back. He's not looked as sharp, but if we can get Decky fit and firing, then we're going to be a strong team again. I think I'd go with Odobert on the left. Given Solanke's out, I think we've got to go with Richie up front because he's the next best option we got. He's in decent form as well in the Premier League. Scored against Nottingham Forest, lovely header. And given West Ham have got some physical players, then he offers that physicality up front. I just don't think Tell does. And on the right, I think I'm probably going to be picking Brennan Johnson again, just because he could pop up with a crucial goal that we just don't have anywhere else on that pitch. I think Archie Gray in midfield in that type of game is going to get swallowed up. and the game might just pass him by, which I don't think we can afford. So that's the team I'd pick for the game of the weekend. The last thing I'm going to do is a player ratings for the game last night. Start with Vicario. I think Vicario, he didn't really have a lot to do. Couldn't really do much about the goal. I think I'm going to give Vicario a 6. I just don't think there was a lot he really needed to do, and he couldn't do much about the goal. Porro, I'll give a 7. Wasn't really challenged that much. Did what he needed to do at the back, and a lovely little pass over the top for Maddison for the second goal. Beautiful ball. If you haven't seen it, please just go back and watch it. It's such a delicious pass. Really good. Yeah, Porro, 7. Romero, well, he won the penalty, which was really clever. But so many times he just gives away so many silly yellow cards. Especially just before I think it was just before they scored. He gave away such a needless, silly yellow card. Really was. Just bodied the player. Didn't need to do it. Doesn't need to do it. He needs to learn. He needs to stamp that out of his game. I'll give him a 7. Van der Ven, 6. Didn't really have much to do. Solid, yeah, 6. Udogi, 6. Some nice bits of play going forward, but a bit wasteful at times. And I think he was dribbled past a couple of times, which he probably could have stopped. As I mentioned earlier, the one just before half time, he really needed to stop that. But I know Udogi, yeah, 6. I'll give him a 6. Bentancur, 7. Pretty solid in midfield. Did nothing wrong. Some nice passes as well. Gave the ball away a few times, but I'll give him a 7. Bissouma, 7. Solid, same as Bentancur, really. Just added that bit of depth and experience in that midfield that I think we needed at times. 7. Johnson scored a crucial goal. Didn't do a lot else though. Really didn't do a lot else. 6. Johnson. Maddison for me an 8. I thought he was terrific before he went off. Just so technically good to watch. Tricky. Neat and tidy. Can get out of tight spaces and lovely distribution at times. And a really well taken goal that put us 2-0 up. I'm going to give him an 8. Richarlison looked good, actually, before he came off. He came off at half time, which maybe they're protecting him. But he put some nice crosses in. Had a couple of shots. Lovely header for for Brennan Johnson's goal. Really nice header back across the box. Yeah, I'll give him Richarlison 7. Finally, Solanke scored his goal from the penalty spot. Nice penalty. Yeah, really good penalty. Didn't really have a lot else to do. What he was asked to do. He put the effort in, holds the ball up quite nicely, and brings others into play quite well. Yeah, I'll give Solanke a 7. I think. In terms of substitutes, Tell had a half. Didn't really have that much of an impact on the game. 6. Kulusevski looked a little bit rusty. I think probably a 5. Didn't have great game. Had a shot at the end that could have gone in. He probably should have done a little bit better with, I think. Seen him score those kind of goals. So I'll give Kulusevski probably a 5. Odobert came on for Solanke. Again, he was only on for 15 minutes. 6. Didn't have much. A few little nice dribbles, but yeah, probably a 6. So overall, I think Spurs, they're in control, but and I've said my gut says that I think they'll win, but come back to me next week, and if I've got it wrong, leave comments, say, oh, why did you curse it? Why do you think they're going to win? This is Spurs. I know what they're like, and I'm not naive. So if Spurs don't win next week and they go crashing out of the Europa League, I won't be surprised at all, to say the least. I think we'll call it a day for there. Thank you very much for joining me on the 1882 Club. We'll be back on Sunday or Monday for the West Ham fixture, which hopefully will get 3 points in the league. We need it to try and break the all-important 40 points barrier. But we'll wait and see whether or not we get it over the line. But in the meantime, thank you very much for listening, and see you soon.